What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Wednesday, March 9th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay, guys, we have a 12-game slate here tonight. So there's a lot of picks on this slate. You know, there's a lot of studs that are looking pretty good, but they are all priced up quite a bit. So, I mean, pick the stud that you like, roll with the stud that you like. I've got some mid-range plays for you here in this video. Now, my first pick at the point guard position, I'm a little hesitant to make this pick, but he's been playing pretty well the past couple of games, and his salary's pretty low compared to other guys who are scoring the same fantasy points as he is. So I like Malik Monk from the LA Lakers playing the Houston Rockets, who have the worst defense overall. They give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Malik Monk, now he's averaging 23.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 27 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. But his minutes and his production are up quite a bit the past few games. He's projected at 25.7 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 30 fantasy points or more in this matchup and get you over 5 times value. He's 5,700 DraftKings salary, 300 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 232.5 points scored in this game, and Malik Monk has scored 35, 37, and 27 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 33, 31, and 29 minutes. So I like Malik Monk here versus the Houston Rockets. Now, actually, on the other side of the ball for the same exact price tag on both sites, and I might feel a little bit more comfortable with this pick, but I think they're both pretty good, and Malik Monk just has a fantastic matchup, obviously, versus the Houston Rockets. But for the Houston Rockets, take a look at Jalen Green, and he's playing the LA Lakers, who have the 4th worst defense overall, give up the 11th most fantasy points to opposing point guards, and also both these guys are eligible at the shooting guard position as well. Jalen Green has averaged 25 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 23% usage rate, so his season average and his minutes per game and his usage rate are all a tick higher than Malik Monk. Now, Malik Monk has the better matchup, but Jalen Green is projected at 26.8 fantasy points here tonight, and I think he can score 30 fantasy points or more, get you over 5 times value. So he's the same price, 5,700 DraftKings salary, 300 more on FanDuel, and he scored 28, 40, and 37 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 34, and 31 minutes. So I like Jalen Green here versus the LA Lakers. Now, you could also consider Monte Morris if you need to squeeze out a little bit of salary, although I do prefer Jalen Green and Malik Monk. But Monte Morris is only 5,100 DraftKings salary. He's averaging 25.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game. And he scored 38, 36, and 27 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 31, 36, and 26 minutes. I think he can score 26 fantasy points or more, get you 5 times value or more. Vegas thinks there's going to be 237 points scored in this game. So both these games are high-scoring games. So I like Monte Morris here versus the Sacramento Kings.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. So both those guys are eligible at the shooting guard position that I just went over. But Josh Richardson, here's a value play from the San Antonio Spurs playing the Toronto Raptors, who have a good defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing shooting guards. Josh Richardson also eligible at the small forward position. He's averaging 17.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 24 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. But I just think this is an interesting pick because he scored 29 fantasy points in 30 minutes last game. He was out for a couple of games, so he came back and played 30 minutes. So this is a high risk, high reward pick. But at $3,700 DraftKings salary and $200 less on FanDuel, I think he's an interesting dart throw here. Considering he scored 29 fantasy points last game, if he's going to get 30 minutes or anything close to that, he's got a good chance at crushing value. Vegas thinks there's going to be 228 points scored in this game. So I like Josh Richardson as a dart throw here versus the Toronto Raptors. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Harrison Barnes from the Sacramento Kings playing the Denver Nuggets, who have a middle of the pack defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing small forwards. And Harrison Barnes has averaged 30.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. He's projected at 31.3 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value. He's $6,100 DraftKings salary, 100 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 237 points scored in this game. I believe this is the highest scoring game on the slate, so you want to have a piece of this game. And Harrison Barnes has scored 29, 22, and 38 fantasy points in the last 3 games. But what I like about this pick is he played 37, 38, and 38 minutes in the last 3 games. So he's playing monster minutes, and he's had some success versus the Nuggets, scoring 35, 32, 23, 47, and 33 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Nuggets. So 4 out of those 5 games, he would have got you over 5 times value at his current price tag. So I like Harrison Barnes here versus the Denver Nuggets. Okay, now here's another mid-range or value play. I think it's a great FanDuel play. Well, you got Aaron Gordon on FanDuel, who's only $4,900 FanDuel salary. I like that FanDuel price for Aaron Gordon, who's playing between 27 and 42 minutes per game the last 3 games. So probably going to play 28 to 32 minutes, it would be my guess. And this guy's got 40 plus fantasy point upside if he gets going. Now he's $5,800 DraftKings salary, but he's $900 less on FanDuel. So I love Aaron Gordon on FanDuel. But and another good FanDuel play, even though I like his DraftKings price as well, is Bojan Bogdanovic from the Utah Jazz playing the Portland Trailblazers. Now, kind of a high risk, high reward play here, although his season average numbers are pretty good. He's averaging 27.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate, and he's projected at 27.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value, 5,300 DraftKings salary, and 600 less on FanDuel. So I love that FanDuel price. He's got a great matchup versus the Portland Trailblazers here, who have the 6th worst defense overall, give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing small forwards, and Bojan Bogdanovic has scored 31, 50, and 10 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 33, and 24 minutes. So I like Bojan Bogdanovic here versus the Portland Trailblazers.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
And one more value play before I move on here. I like DeAndre Hunter from the Atlanta Hawks playing the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Now, DeAndre Hunter has scored or averaged 21.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate, but his minutes per game are up quite a bit for the past 3 games, so that's why I like this pick. He's projected at 23.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's 4,800 DraftKings salary and 400 less on FanDuel. So a lot of good salary or good priced players at the small forward position on FanDuel. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 236.5 points scored in this game. So another high scoring game. DeAndre Hunter has scored 23, 33, and 26 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And the reason I like this pick is because he played 37, 34, and 36 minutes. So playing monster minutes for under 5,000 DraftKings salary and super cheap on FanDuel at only 4,400 and in a high scoring game with a good matchup. So I like DeAndre Hunter here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. I like John Collins from the Atlanta Hawks playing the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing power forwards. John Collins has averaged 33.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. He's projected at 31.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times the value. He's 6,000 DraftKings salary, 500 more on FanDuel. So I love that DraftKings price. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 236.5 points scored in this game. And John Collins has scored 35 and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 31 and 24 minutes. He's scoring an average of 1.09 fantasy points per minute. So if he can get 30 minutes or more in this game, I like his chances of cracking 5 times value on DraftKings. So I like John Collins here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, moving on to the center position. You guys know this guy is a stud. I just want to point him out here because he's in another fantastic matchup with excellent player versus team history. I mean, he's priced way up, but the guy is just putting up fantastic numbers. So take a look at Nikola Jokic from the Denver Nuggets playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the third worst defense overall, give up the second most fantasy points to opposing centers. Nikola Jokic is averaging 60.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 31% usage rate, projected at 61 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. So I think he's going to need like 63 fantasy points or more on DraftKings, but he's priced down on FanDuel, so doesn't need as much to hit value on FanDuel. He's 12,600 DraftKings salary, 1,100 less on FanDuel. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 237 points scored in this game, so a super high scoring game. And Nikola Jokic has scored 74 and 94 fantasy points in the last two games, playing 34 and 42 minutes. I was a little hesitant to play the Joker after that 94 fantasy point performance, and what did he do? He went out there and put up 74 fantasy points, so this guy's just been a slate breaker. And versus the Sacramento Kings, in his last 5 games, he scored 49, 65, 66, 89, and 60 fantasy points in the last 5 games versus the Kings. So I like Nikola Jokic here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, if you want to save a little bit of salary at the center position, I like Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz playing the Portland Trailblazers, who have the 6th worst defense overall. They give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Rudy Gobert has averaged 42 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He's projected at 42.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. I think he's a little underpriced on both sites. Anytime you can get Rudy Gobert for under 8K, go ahead and scoop him up. He's 7,800 DraftKings salary, 100 less on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 221 points scored in this game, and Rudy Gobert has scored 34, 38, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 34, 34, and 25 minutes, and he's crushed the Portland Trailblazers here. He scored 45, 51, 48, 50, and 47 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Trailblazers. So Rudy Gobert, probably one of my favorite plays on the slate. Just looks like a solid, safe play. You got to think he can get 40 fantasy points or more here in this game and get you well over 5 times value, with the potential for a 50-plus fantasy point performance, which would crush value. So I like Rudy Gobert here versus the Portland Trailblazers.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video, or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.